Uh, yeah. Let's go, I guess. That's 3 points secured today. That is now 5 wins on the bounce under Graham Potter. But if we're keeping things absolutely real, Monte, we have to probably admit that Aston Villa were the better footballing team today that caused the most issues, created the most danger, and forced the most dangerous saves as well too. But there is one thing from this game though. No matter how dangerous and good Aston Villa play today, realistically, they need to have one of the games of their lives to be able to secure 3 points or 1 point in a game like this. With us, on the other hand, though, because we have better players naturally with more quality, it means that they can take advantage with their quality in those few small moments in a game in which clubs like Aston Villa can't necessarily take advantage of. And today, those moments of quality came from Kepa, who put in one of the most masterful goalkeeping performances that I've ever seen from this guy in his entire Chelsea career. Without this guy in the first half, we are literally 3 goals down to Aston Villa. That's how bad it was, and that's how incredible a lot of these saves were from Kepa. And of course, lots of those quality moments came from Mason Mount, who found himself in the right areas at the right time, continuing and maintaining that great run and form he's currently on, as well as that incredible free kick in which I just knew this ball was destined to go in the back of the net, because for me, it was just one of those games where we didn't have to play at our best. We had to remain resolute, stay defensively strong, which we improved upon as the game was going on, and of course, taking advantage in moments when it matters in game. And ultimately, that is why we won the game today, and that's why we're currently 4th in the table, and this is why things are starting to look positive in this month of October. Still though, could you argue that maybe because the World Cup is literally taking place next month, players are looking at Reece James and N'Golo Kante out with their injuries, possibly most likely missing out on contributing in the World Cup next month? Maybe that's why a lot of players maybe didn't play with the same type of intensity at times during the game. I'm not too sure. Maybe have to accept that Aston Villa played that well to really make us look bad at times in game. Or maybe it's a combination of both. I'm not too sure. But regardless, you guys, the most important thing is we got 3 points today. And today's What We Learned video, I want to discuss Raheem Sterling. I want to talk about Mason Mount. I want to talk about Kepa, and I want to talk about some of the changes that Graham Potter made, of course, to turn this game around in our favor. So I hope you guys definitely enjoy. Hit that like button and please get involved in the comment section, because I definitely want to get your thoughts and perspective behind some of my opinions on certain players in the team. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into things. And I guess to start with, I want to discuss the changes that Graham Potter made. With the lineup he put out there, it was a very interesting lineup. I think we all kind of assumed initially that Loftus-Cheek would be maintaining that position, playing as a right wing back in the game. However, things were completely different. Actually, the lineup was Mount, Aubameyang and Kai Havertz up front. Wing backs was Ben and Raheem Sterling, with Ruben and Cover in midfield, and of course the defence of Cucurella on the left, Silva, Trevor Chalobah and Kepa in goal. And a lot of times when we were attacking, this formation would actually transform into like a 4-1-4-1 system instead, which I guess kind of makes sense. You got the supporting runs from the midfield players. You've got Raheem Sterling playing more as a winger in that sense, and Trevor Chalobah pushing out wide to become like that makeshift right back. But to be honest with you, if it wasn't for that incredible lax mistake that Tyrone Mids, who I kind of just call him because he's one of the most like middle of the ground players in the Premier League, it wasn't for a silly mistake. Aston Villa could have had a completely different fortune in that first half, because I felt like in that first half in particular, we kept getting done out wide throughout the entirety of that first half. And is there any surprise? I think Aston Villa clocked in around like 22 to 25 crosses throughout the entirety of this game. I don't think so. They played a lot of fast balls in behind to isolate the wide men, 1v1 against our wide centre-backs, completely bypassing our wing-backs, especially down the right-hand side where Sterling was. I felt like Sterling, maybe on paper, it could have made sense to use him in that position, but in reality, he wasn't really tracking back as much. The ball wasn't really getting played out to him as much, and I felt like, we signed this guy to be a goal-scoring winger. So if he's far removed from the books, I feel like a lot of his benefits and his positivity actually diminishes throughout the game. So it's no surprise that Aston Villa were peppering us and peppering us and peppering us. And, credit to Graham Potter. This is what I like about this guy, yeah? He can see where things are going wrong, and he understands how to change the complexion of a game. That is the most important thing, and I think a lot of managers actually struggle in these regards at times. You know, Graham Potter understood, okay, let's get this team at least to the end of the first half without conceding against Aston Villa. So he made a few smart changes. He moved Mason Mount into midfield. He moved Loftus-Cheek as a wing-back out wide, and he moved Raheem Sterling back up front. I think that was definitely needed to give us a bit more solidity in terms of, you know, giving more protection to the wide centre-backs and to stop getting these guys isolated time and time again. And of course, you know, that gave us the foundation for Potter to make those substitutions at the beginning, at the start of the second half. And I was surprised to see maybe Havertz and, you know, players like Cucurella coming off instantly. But for me, these were the right decisions to make. You know, having Azpilicueta playing as a more natural wingback. You know, we're going to have to maybe maintain his fitness more because he's going to be important for us as our most naturally suited wingback in the system. And Koulibaly coming on to replace Cucurella was also another good decision. You know, having like a back three which understands each other's games was very important. Having that like defensive expertise at the back to cope more against Aston Villa, and having that solidity back in midfield as well too. I felt like in terms of Potter's game management after making like maybe the mistakes of his first half lineup, I mean, yeah, all those mistakes were completely forgotten about. He really found a way to stem the influence of Aston Villa. And for me, you know, this is what Graham Potter does. You know, when you have a manager that is so good at now understanding how to change a game, and when you give him the squad and players to do that, special things can come. And I think once he gets even, you know, more better players to work with, for me, the future is incredibly exciting. So now let's move on to the second thing we learned. And I want to talk about Raheem Sterling. So right now, I want to talk about the second thing we learned, and I want to discuss Raheem Sterling. Now, I want to start things off by saying, you know, I completely understood the type of player that we signed, and I felt like I made things very clear throughout my news videos during the summer periods where, you know, this guy is, you know, got great experience. He's a great goal scoring winger. You know, he is a world-class player in that sense, but he's not the type of player in games like this where he's going to change a game based on his scoring ability. You know, a lot of times, especially recently, I feel like I can't remember too many significant actions from Sterling. I remember him getting in good positions where he has hit the post a few times, not necessarily found that luck in front of goal. There was a moment, of course, I think in the first half, actually, before it ended, where a great play from Kai Havertz, gets past two players, plays it wide on the left to Raheem Sterling, who has time and space to place his shot, goes for that curling effort into the top corner, and unfortunately, maybe because it was very windy, it hits the crossbar instead. I think that's probably the best bit of play from Sterling in this game today. But, you know, I didn't see too much in the second half, especially considering that we made it 2-0 with I think about like maybe 25 minutes of the game left to play, and Sterling was finding himself from good positions where players were looking to find him, but it felt like his first touch every single time was just like catching the ball under his feet time and time again. I felt like in terms of his ability to skip past his man, you know, I've always felt like his dribbling stats has been something that has been decreasing and diminishing season on season by now, and a lot of times he really just like relies upon his speeds, his acceleration and his low center of gravity to kind of put his opponents off balance when he's running at the ball with them. But in sense of like his dribbling with his feet, you know, at times he's just too easy to brush off the ball now. I feel like we're not getting too much imagination or that X factor. And I don't know, I've always been saying this for a while. I think before we can go to the next level as a football club, we need to bring back those like attacking players that possess that bit of fear and X factor in their game, because they are really the big difference makers between like top clubs like your Madrids and your Bayerns and your Man Cities, etc., compared to clubs like us who are trying to get on that level. And I do feel like maybe over time Sterling is going to be one of those sick players having the squad, but I definitely just don't see him being like the star guy, and it's a bit frustrating in that sense, in my opinion. Obviously, I know that he's one of those guys, but when he's on the run of form, he will be good for like 5, 6, 7 games, but it's in terms of that consistency, in terms of like the threat he's bringing on a game-by-game basis, I feel like it's not really there. It hasn't been there in the past like 5 games. I think he got 1 assist against AC Milan recently, that's it. And I don't know, it's just seen Havertz, seen Sterling, seen a few of these guys not really shining as much as I want to see. Maybe I'm getting a bit too worried ahead of time, maybe, but I feel like there's more I should be expecting from Sterling in this team, considering that he left Man City to be the star guy here. So I want to see some of those star performances now. So now let's move on to the third talking point, and we have to talk about Mason Mount. And I'm really praying this is the season. All the doubts and the naysayers and all the criticism, all the hypersensitivity surrounding this guy dies this season, because when guys like your Pulisic, Havertz, literally any and every single attacking player bar Mason Mount in this team, they do not get the same level of criticism that Mount gets. And for me, I think it's getting a bit ridiculous now. He literally won the game for us again. 2 goals today. You know, he finds himself in the right position at the right time, because that's what Mason Mount does. He doesn't just stand still and let the game go past him. He looks to affect things and put pressure. So you create your own luck, and that's why he was in that right position then to, of course, take advantage of the mistake made by Mings. And of course, that second goal with that free kick, the minute that ball went in, I think we all got flashbacks to that video from when he was like a kid at Cobham talking about putting the valve and swerve on the ball, because literally he made that look so simple and easy. And I think because of his great form he's on currently, I feel so confident with every touch and every movement and every decision he's making on the field. And with a player like Mount, I just kind of feel like the thing that has created so much criticism around his game is that people don't really understand what type of player he is. You know, because he can play so many different positions to a very good level. You know, he can be criticized for not doing certain things that you might want to see from players who are more traditionally suited to playing in those positions. But, you know, instead of using that against Mount, you got to look at it as, wow, this guy can kind of do everything and everything that you would need to like a really high standard and level. And that's what separates him from his peers. I mean, look at that first half decision making from Graham Potter then. He moved Mount back into midfield, moved Loftus-Cheek to the ring-back position, and moved Sterling back up front. You know, when you have a player like Mount, that just gives you more tactical possibilities because of, you know, the overall completeness in his game and the positions you can trust this guy to play in. But that doesn't take away from this guy's skill and touch on the ball and, you know, his shooting technique. And now that he's been given more license to drop deep, affect the game, and not be this like guy that only solely operated as someone to make space for others, now you can really see what he can do. It's no surprise why his form is shining, and I see it continuing because really this guy is probably our best player or one of our very best players at this point in time. So Mount is continuing to shine. Absolute credit goes to him, and to end things, you know, massive credit also goes out to Kepa Arrizabalaga today. You know, some people have said, Nini, you're too critical of Kepa. I don't think I have been critical of Kepa. It's more the fact that I'm not gonna overhype and gas his performances for like that bare minimum professionalism I'm expecting. But in games like this today, where he stood out and, you know, played above that professional bare minimum, wow, what a performance today. And it's so hard for me to decide on who the man of the match is, because without Mount's goals, we get nothing from this game because no one else was threatening. But without Kepa at the back, I feel like we lose the game in the first half and everything goes out the window. Maybe Kepa's influence was more important in that sense of, you know, keeping the goals down, because some of the saves he made. I'm thinking of that double save he made at the start of the first half. I think around the 20th minute, where I think, was it like Ings took the shot? Kepa makes the save, gets back on his feet quickly, and then Ramsey's there for the rebound with Kepa just diving hot, you know, palms really strong and hard, diving downwards, pushing it out of the way. But for me, one of the saves of the season, easily one of the saves of the season, came from that point blank Danny Ings header. Wow, what an incredible save from Kepa. Whoa, that was sensational. Absolute credit goes to him. And he was just a colossus at the back today. Again, it's between Mount or Kepa for man of the match. Listen, if you argue for Kepa, I'd have nothing against that, because he really was phenomenal today and he stepped up so much. I think now that Mendy has had some inconsistent form and now that he's out injured, this is finally the time for Kepa to really show, you know, all the things he's learned over the past few seasons. I think having competition has really made him step up even more. And I'm not seeing those mistakes in his game anymore where he was constantly getting criticized for, you know, like always like bouncing on his feet before making a save, because by the time he, you know, actually dived to make the save, he already made himself too slow off the mark to deal with those shots. So I think, yeah, massive credit goes out to Kepa. For me, it's amazing that we have 2 top keepers at this club, where if Mendy has poor form, Kepa steps in, and if Kepa has poor form, Mendy steps in too. I think that's what you want to have and see here. So you guys, that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving, share your thoughts and opinions behind this game. How did you feel? Who were the players that stood out? And who are the players that disappointed you today as well too? So on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions TV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.